This is Astana, Kazakhstan. Although Astana looks amazing now, it hasn't always been this prosperous or wealthy. Let's go back to the very beginning. Okay, so way back in the medieval ages, between about 6 and 700 AD, this small settlement called Bozok was founded on the Silk Road on a bunch of intersections by this group called the Kipchak Turks. Now, these were a Turkic people, hence the name, and they were around for hundreds and hundreds of years in this area around modern-day Kazakhstan. And then this settlement that they founded called Bozok was made as a kind of fort because of the terrain around the city, and obviously the intersection of the roads made it a valuable point for them to control. And like when I started researching for this video, I don't know what I thought Kazakhstan looked like, but they have really diverse geography. They have canyons and mountains and massive valleys full of flowers, and it's really beautiful. They have moose and a ton of animals as well. And so this settlement also had a lot of farmland around it. There was wetlands, so it was really good for farming, and it could actually sustain a decent sized population for the time. So between its founding and about 1280, it gets bounced around between a ton of different Turkic peoples. But then in 1216 AD, these guys that we know as the Mongols, or the Golden Horde, come in and just sweep through the whole region, conquer Bozok, and then it is under their control. The Mongols have a really strong grip over the area until maybe about 1411, when the Golden Horde starts to fracture as all of the different heirs to the throne kind of split off and try and become their king of the whole group. But none of them actually managed to become the king of all the Mongols. So in 1428, the Uzbek Khanate, who is led by the brother of the leader of the Golden Horde, come in and take control of the area. For about 32 years they're in control, and then the Kazakhs, they just come in, and after some skirmishes, the Kazakhs annex all of the Uzbek Khanate's land. Now let's just notice that up to the north, Russia has started to form as a whole under one banner. Just keep that in mind. Meanwhile, the Kazakh Khanate is just kinda doing their thing, and you'll notice the borders around it start to form modern day Kazakhstan, or somewhat close to it. And then all along the north, where we just said Russia was, Russia starts to form all these little encampments across the Kazakhs' northern border. And what's gonna start to happen is Russia is encroaching on their territory. And by 1781, all of northern Kazakhstan had been invaded by Russia, including our small settlement of Bozok. And now that Russia has control, the settlement is going to boost in population. Now I just want to say that not all of Kazakhstan was conquered by Russia. A lot of the time, or at least a number of times, parts of Kazakhstan willfully let themselves become part of the Russian Empire because Russia offered really great protection. They knew that if they joined Russia, they would be cemented and nobody would hurt them because Russia is such a big, powerful empire. In 1830, Bozok really starts to grow because of Russia, and it becomes renamed Akmoli. Over the next 30 years, the population grows massively and a ton of infrastructure is built. Schools are built, factories are built, and on top of that, the existing farmland becomes developed far more. At the end of this 30 years, Russia renames it once more, its second rename, to Akmolinsk. So now it's 1953, and Nikita Khrushchev came up with an idea to combat Russia's food crisis. They start pouring money and resources into northern Kazakhstan in this thing called the Virgin Lands Campaign. Now this is really important for a number of places, and in 1954 Akmolinsk had a massive population boom for the second time, except instead of going up by 3x, this time it went from about 7,000 people to more than 100,000 people, which is crazy. Additionally, to commemorate the role that Akmolinsk had in the Virgin Lands Campaign, its name was changed yet again to Stalinograd. Now, you might be sensing a theme here. And although the Virgin Lands Campaign ultimately failed because it couldn't produce quite enough because it was dependent on a lot of seasonal weather, now a lot of new infrastructure in Stalinograd had been built. So now in the 1960s, Stalinograd is starting to become modern day Astana, Kazakhstan. Money is pouring in, and lots of new monuments and tributes are being built. As you may remember, in 1991, the Soviet Union falls. And this means that Kazakhstan becomes its own sovereign state. To commemorate this, Astana gets yet another name change to what it had before, or a version of it, to Akmola. 6 years later, in 1997, the capital is moved from the south of Kazakhstan in Almaty to the north of Kazakhstan, but far more central than Almaty, to Astana, or at this point, Akmola. And now that this city was the capital, it's almost like it gained the right to be super extravagant. And lots of crazy buildings start being built. 1 year after being named the capital of Kazakhstan, it became Astana, Kazakhstan. They renamed it yet again. After this, it only had one other name change. From 2019 to 2022, a brief period, it was named Nur Sultan after the previous president. Now, you might be wondering, why is it all that crazy? There's been some stuff that's happening. It's been around for a long time. Plenty of places have been around time. Plenty of places have money, but not very many places are nearly as crazy as Astana. This revolves, from my analysis, around two primary factors. The first factor of which is the government. Although the government tries to follow a lot of democratic ideologies, it often falls short. It has, unfortunately, a lot of corruption and is ranked relatively low on the democracy index. This allowed for President Nazarbayev, who had a regime of almost 30 years, to do effectively whatever he wanted. He had lots of money, time, and power. He wanted to make his capital look amazing, and so lots of crazy things were built. However, thankfully, Kazakhstan is starting to make moves in the right direction. The most recent president actually just passed a law that makes it so there are term limits. The president can only have one singular term, but that term lasts 7 years, which is, I think, pretty good balance. Only time will tell if this bill is actually followed in the end, but it is definitely the right direction. Now, this is where money comes into play. So Kazakhstan, unsurprisingly, has oil, the black gold. And not only does it have oil, it has natural gas and tons of other amazing resources. The land that Astana was built on and the land within Kazakhstan, there is a ton of natural resources and rare earth metals. They have the world's 11th largest oil production. They produce about 1.9 billion barrels a day. In 2021, they produced 27 billion cubic meters of natural gas, which is another massive export. In addition to their natural resources, Kazakhstan has gotten a lot of foreign investment. Kazakhstan has tried to make itself one of the world's trade hubs, and they are doing remarkably well. Astana gets a lot of money going towards it. These two factors, the presidency, which lasted for almost 30 years, and the money, on the other hand, together have allowed Astana to become what it is today. A very beautiful and strange city. From its roots as a small fort on the Silk Road, to modern day capital of a country with a massive GDP, Astana is certainly one of the most beautiful capitals in the world, and regardless of how it made that money, I think we can all appreciate some beautiful art.